So, good evening, everyone. Um, good evening to you all. After 2 days of storm, today it's settled. And much peace and quiet. It's like they say, every crisis after ends there is a peace. Peaceful. In our mental state, we also experience such crisis again and again, in different forms, in different times, in different ways. Some reacted with a negative mental state, and others will react with a positive mental state. The same incident, but two different reactions. And that two different reactions often leads to the happy or unhappy happiness or unhappiness state. And that's how one becomes miserable or one becomes happy. So it's entirely up to each and individual's skill, capability, understanding, and knowing how to deal with the situation so that we will not be disturbed, and also we are not disturbing others. And that's the part of our life that we will come across with these ups and downs, and the matter is how we are dealing with it. So Buddha's teachings is not about what is the problem, it's about how to deal with the problem. And that dealing is our sight, not dependent on any other external objects or external things. It's up to us to deal with that, and after dealing with it, whatever outcome comes, then that's completely based on our reaction to it. So the misery and happiness is our own reaction to the things that we come across. Obviously, we have been exposed to so many things nowadays compared to the past. And with that exposed with so many things, we could not minimize or we could not think properly. And we are drawn or we are dragged to those incidents, and based on whatever belief or whatever understanding in it, one will be involved with it, and with that involvement, that will be affecting a person who is involved, as well as the activity that will be affecting to the wider community. So that's why in this time we got to be very careful with our observation, with our understanding, with our knowing, with our consuming all the information. Consuming all the information is okay, but we got to be very mindful in it. that how are we consuming it? Are we creating one better to another, or one side of another side? Or are we using a proper investigation and making a decision without going to any conclusion of one side or the another, but coming to the neutral position? Now, in order to come to the neutral position, we got to practice, or we got to gather information from both sides. Not only information that we gather, but we also have to thoroughly investigate, and only then come to the conclusion, which conclusion would be the solution for the both parties, both things. Like the Buddha, he, while he was the prince, he was indulged with the pleasure of the five senses. So he was entertaining all the things that we wish for. He had a luxurious house to stay in each season, and so he was changing the palace each seasons. Fine clothes to wear, fine rice or fine food to eat, and entertainments were there almost every night, and homeschooling, the country's greatest teachers were there to teach him. All sorts of facilities he had it, which we wish to have it, or which we dream to have it. And yet, after he spent that in such a extreme, he realized that this is not the way to be happy. This is not the happiness that he was looking for, because on that path, we are simply repeating again in the journey to be back again in the samsara and facing similar patterns of suffering again and again, like a birth, aging, sickness, and a death. Now he felt that this is not the one. And that is the reason, after he had entertained and indulged for such an extreme, he decided to give the palace life. And he left the palace and becomes an ascetic, known as the royal ascetic. Now he left everything. He left the royal princely life. He left his beautiful wife. He left his newly born baby, the son. He left all his luxurious life, but went into a homelessness, wearing rag robes, begging of food, sleeping under the trees. And again, he went to such an extreme, from the luxurious life to the beggar's life. Homelessness. And not only being a homelessness, he submitted himself to the different teachers, and he went on learning whatever ways possible that he could go and learn, so that he can find the solution not to be reborn again. Went on practicing different techniques, different teachers, different methods, different meditations and philosophies, and go on. And eventually, again, he found that this is not the way. So intellectual way, intellectually gaining the information, gathering all the knowledge is not the way. Now, he had the luxurious life, entertaining, indulging, and was not satisfied, and went on to study, and now he was again dissatisfied with that. Now all the information he gathered, now he wanted to test it, so he tested up to the utmost, that no one could, after him, I have a doubt, could have done it again. Such an extreme he went to practice. He became so thin, almost to the death. And he realized that again, that this is not the path, this is not the way. And that's how he eventually gave up physical torture, mentally information gathering, and entertaining senses, and indulge all these 5 senses. Then finally he realized that actual work that we should be doing is the mental work. How these things affects, how these things are proliferated, manifested, how the mind is polluted, and how it could be purified. And that was the flipping, that was the click. With that in mind, he went on to practice meditation, and while he was meditating, his mind went into such a calmness, complete calmness, up to the ability that he gained to remember his old past lives, what he had done in his past lives, and how he came to be. And after that, he again investigated that was it himself alone or all the sentient beings are like that, and he realized that all the sentient beings are also like that. And what is the driving force that taking us to these continuum rebirths in the samsara and experiencing the suffering again and again? And that's how he found this solution. The conclusion is the Buddhism, the Buddha's teachings. Similar way, we have to investigate, we have to learn, we have to open ourselves to everything and investigating wisely, investigating properly. And with that wise investigation in a different ways and different forms, and then eventually we come to the conclusion. And that conclusion again got to be wisely reflected, not just because I think so, not just because my theory says so, not just because my logic says so, not just because my scripture says so, not just because my teacher says so, not just because my tradition says so, not just because the person who spoke is well respected. These are the things that we should be considering to believe in anything. Now, that's why Buddhism is something that offers us to the freedom of a thought. We can think, and this freedom of a thought doesn't mean that Buddha is asking us to neglect any other people's thought, any other beliefs, any other theories. We have to listen them, we have to investigate them, only then come to the conclusion. And nowadays what's happening is that we hold on to our theory, we hold on to our logics, we hold on to our investigation and thinking. It is according to my belief and so on. And then with that, not ready to listen others. The moment when we are not ready to listen others, then there will be no peace, there will be no solution, there will be no conclusion that brings the real happiness. So that's why doesn't matter which theory we hold on to, doesn't matter which perception we having into, doesn't matter which logics we are having it. It's a matter of allowing others to express their views, their theory, their understanding, and their logics too. Only then one would be able to come to the conclusion. Otherwise, both sides speaking from their own perceptions and own emotions. So, in the Buddha's teachings, is not about the emotional fight. It's about the intellectual understanding and sharing the common goal. If we follow this, then it would be possible for a good solution. And this is simply I'm saying because I saw some protests and some discussions as well, and then I realized that one side is not ready to listen another side's view. Even in the UN assembly, when the representative or diplomats, so-called diplomats, if one of a diplomat is going to give a speech, and if you don't like, you run away, leaving the room. That is not a diplomatic way of dealing with, and which actually, rather than solving the problem, you're increasing more problem. So the Buddha strictly instructed in the Saraniya Dhamma. So in the Saraniya Dhamma, Buddha strictly said, if you come to the solution and wants to find the real peace, you have to attend the meeting on time, leaving on time, not leaving until the meeting ends, respecting one another, when respecting a speaker, being a good listener, and then following the rules and regulations in that assembly. And only then that brings the peace and the happiness and come to the solution. So if we really want to be a diplomats, then we should be ready to listen anything from anywhere, from anyone. So that's why the ambassadors are for. Ambassadors will not say yes or no to anything. They will simply accept and say that we'll think about it and it's a good idea. We'll contact you, something like that. But I found on this UN assembly, I felt that these diplomats are disqualified to deal with the message of a peace and representing the country. But anyway, this is not the subject that I should be talking about. So our subject is the chanting of this Kalama Sutta, which speaks about the rational and rational, experiential, and ethical approach to the knowledge and a belief. It embodies the spirit of a free inquiry and critical reflection, and also not only the personal verification through the experience, but also a wise reflection on each subject, each information that we gather, which is the cornerstone of the Buddhist philosophy and the psychology. So this Kalama Sutta, that's why, is the most well studied and used to deal with any other views and theories. So that's why in Buddhism always encouraged everyone to listen and investigate on that. Not only in terms of this knowledge and intellectual investigation, it got to be ethical and experiential as well. So the Buddha said that if that is unwholesome and people, the wise one blames it or not accept it or blameworthy, and leads to the harm and the suffering, and that should be regarded as unwholesome and something that is blameless. and welfare and happiness of many, and that should be taken as a wholesome. So basically it speaks about the ways to deal with things with kindness, compassion, altruistic or empathy, and ability to live in a balanced way. Basically, this is the Buddhism actually allows from this particular discourse express that this is a scientific inquiry that each and every one has to do, and should be the evidence-based understanding, not only the evidence-based understanding and holding on to it. It should be practical and morally reasoning, and it should be applicable into the human behavior further on. It encourages to find the respectful discernment from interrelationship between any other different faith groups, and mindfully able to maneuver for the personal happiness and then the happiness of others, which will bring a real peace and find a real happiness. So that is the story behind the Kalama Sutta that we are going to recite tonight. So with this, let's recite the Kalama Sutta. Etatum me kalama ma anusavena ma paramparaya ma hitikiriyaya ma pitaka sampadanena ma takahetu ma naya hetu Mahakara parivitakena matitene chanakatiya ma bhaparopataya ma samanono karoti yathadome kalama atana vachanayatha ime dhamma kusala ime dhamma savacha ime dhamma vinyo karahita ime dhamma samanta samadhina ahitaya dukhaya sangvatanti te athadume kalama pajahayatha yathadume kalama atana vachanayatha ime dhamma kusala ime dhamma hanavacha ime dhamma vinyo pasatha ime dhamma samadha samadhina hitaya sukhaya sangvatanti te athadume kalama upasambacha viharayatati. Kevin, can you read the translation?
The discourse on the mere belief. Discourse on the mere belief. Do not go, you Kalamas, by what you have heard said, nor by what has been transmitted, nor by the general consensus, nor by what has been in a collection of texts, nor on the basis of logical reasoning, nor by reflection on appearances, nor on the basis of inference, nor by the agreement after pondering views, nor by what seems probable, nor by the samana in our revered teacher. Whenever kalamas you know for yourselves, these dhammas are akusala, these dhammas are savajja, these dhammas are censured by the wise, these dhammas, when undertaken and carried out, lead to harm and dukkha, then, kalamas, you should abandon them. These dhammas are kalusa, these dhammas are anavajja, these dhammas are commended by the wise. These dhammas, when undertaken and carried out, lead to welfare and sukha. Then, kalamas, having reached them, you should dwell in them.